Hi, my name is Fons, and I'm going to be hosting the second Argo Flux development meeting. We have at least one new face, Ivan here, who I knew from from the past, but who I don't think has attended any of the meetings here. The agenda this week is open-ended, and we don't really have any actions from the past week as far as I can see. So maybe we can start with Ivan introducing himself and telling us about what his interest on Argo Flux is. And while he does that, somebody needs to take notes. Maybe Hida, you can take notes while I speak, because
I'm taking notes.
Doing both. Okay.
Already started taking notes.
Thank you.
All right, Ivan, then take it away.
So I've been using Flux for a while, almost from the beginning, I think. And I joined Influx recently, and they use Argo CD. And there are things that I like from Argo. There are things I like from Flux. There are things that I don't like from both of them. So I thought I will join this team and try to make the best of both.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
All right, great. I don't think we have anybody else new. Maybe Chanhong.
Hi, this is
Hi,
Chanhong. Sorry,
Hi.
I just connected through my phone, so I didn't know what to say before.
Oh no, we were
sentence,
just
yeah.
no, we pretty much just started the meeting, and Ivan is new in this meeting, so he was introducing himself and telling us how he uses Argo, well, Flux in particular, and why he's interested in Argo Flux. Would you be so kind to do the same?
Sure. This is Chunhong Xiao. I'm from D2IQ, formerly known as Mesosphere, and we're working on like internal system for doing CI and CD, and then we do like we actually are currently using Argo CD right now. And after like looking at Flux or seeing something like a couple other options, and figure out Argo CD is like a nice tool that allow us to do this GitHub in a divertive way, and we really like it. And that's basically our use case.
All right, makes sense. Great. Thanks everyone for attending. Thank you, Chanhan, for introducing yourself.
Thank you.
As I said, we don't really have an agenda, specific agenda. Maybe we'll throw out an update on what has been done. Hi, Gemma. And
Hi.
Alex has been the one mostly working on Argo Flux in the past week, so maybe it would be good for him to tell us what has happened.
Yeah, so there was some progress. We were planning to work on namespace isolation mode in Argo because it's needed for Flux and so have to be supported by GitOps engine. That is done. So now it's possible to just monitor a single namespace or n namespaces in a cluster. And next, this is the good news, and bad news is that we had to focus on some bug fixing, not just because of Argo is broken. We just found some day zero bugs basically in the code, not blockers, but it's bad to, basically we want to fix them before we move that code into a separate library. And that's still happening. And I suspect will be busy next week. And next week, actually, I'm going to start moving that code into GitOps engine. So the whole thing is delayed by like 2 weeks, I guess. Yeah, but I'm kind of still positive because the changes we are doing will be really beneficial. For example, we already get rid of fork execs of kubectl, and we had to do it because some of our internal Argo CD instances grow too much. and we just could not support number of clusters we were trying to manage. So we had to switch from kubectl fork exec to just import kubectl as a library and use it. So that will help. Basically, it will just improve performance of GitOps engine, and once Flux uses it, it will improve Flux performance as well. So
that sounds great.
Yeah.
We actually we considered that, but we didn't do it because there was, at least at the time, there was a lot of functionality in kubectl which wasn't really exposed through the
Yes.
Go libraries.
And
so how did you resolve that?
That was not me, it's Jesse. And basically, we tried it like a year ago, and we failed. And now Jesse told me something changed, and kubectl is more like kind of friendly now. And he's not in that meeting. Maybe next time he will join and he can explain. Basically, he found an example. Some other project uses it, and he applied the same solution. So now it's possible to import it as a library and just, use the same code, but instead of forking a process, it can be just done inside of the same process. And it improved performance like a lot. So from minutes to seconds in some cases.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's already merged, and now I have, basically I know only 2 bugs which we want to fix, and then finally execute what we plan to execute.
And that's something everybody will benefit from in the GitOps engine because we're particularly targeting syncing to start with, and that is the core part of syncing, right?
Yeah, syncing as well as the reconciliation. Argo kind of tries to continuously, maintain the state of an application and try to, in case of Flux, state of a cluster, and it tries to answer, is everything in sync or out of sync? And in some cases, it needs to convert one version of a resource into another version. And we used to try to use kubectl convert, which is another fork, and that was slowing down performance a lot. And now we get rid of that as well. So we just use a proper way of converting resources. And basically, the main motivation to do that change was, again, internal performance issues. And when we applied the change, performance increased like by 4 times. And it's easy to explain because before we were trying to execute fork exec kubectl convert every second. And now we can just execute a simple Golang function.
Yeah. So in the case of Flux, we don't really have that need because we have a polling model, which by default is every 5 minutes, I believe.
Yes, and
so the fork exec overhead is not as big. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. For Flux, it would not be a big issue, but it would be difficult to move code and then try to fix it instead of fix it.
Oh no! It makes all the sense in the world.
Yep. So, but yeah, I'm very confident we're kind of wrapping it up, and we will try to cut 1.4 release of Argo CD, basically as soon as possible, because it's only bug fixes. That's all we were doing, so it's kind of stable. And once it's done, we'll switch to GitOps engine again. That's it. That's all my update.
All right. So in a nutshell, we've been busy with other stuff. Well, not other stuff actually, because the namespace, the namespace filtering is needed in order to use the GitOps engine in Flux, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise we would lose that functionality in Flux. There's quite a bit of people relying on it.
Now
so that has been incorporated into Argo CD. There have been performance improvements, and the next step is to retake move the GitOps engine from a proof of concept into something more production ready, and then add those changes to Flux.
Yep.
That makes sense. In the meantime, we have a question from Changhan. Can someone give me a guide about how to get right access to the community doc. Should I join some group? Thanks. When you mean, what do you mean by the community doc? You mean the agenda and the notes of this meeting, or you mean the GitHub Engine repository, Changhan?
Oh, well, I mean just the signing up in the meeting doc.
What? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
What do you mean by sign up?
Like this meeting doc. I saw someone signing up, so I just wondering, like, do I need to join some groups so I can do sign up, or like it's just like you
I see.
or the host signing up things, signing up for people attendees.
I don't think it's required.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
You just need the URL. You don't need anything else.
Oh, really? Because I see it's view only. Maybe I have some problem with on my end. Okay, thank you. I'll figure out.
View, sorry, come again. View only as in what? Like sharing your screen or
No,
editing?
as in anyone with access to the link can view, but they cannot edit. Shall I change that?
Yeah, we don't want to make it like open and completely to the internet, right? Because otherwise it can get abused. But request access, and we will give you access, Jonathan.
Sure. Well, yeah. I'll join the Slack channel and maybe like chat over there. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Does anybody else have any questions? Because I don't really have anything anything else on my end. There's a pull request on the GitHub engine about adding requirements for image scanning and image updates. Pretty much the functionality Flux has, but maybe have it in a let's say product independent way so that it can also be shared by Argo. Alex has opened a PR which I commented on, and also Michael from the Flux team is looking into splitting out the image scanning and image updating of Flux into an independent entity. So maybe that itself can be reduced by Argo as well. Last week we were talking about ways in which people want to commit to Git even without the image scanning part and so on. And all that feedback has been taken into account in the PR I'm referring to. Does anybody else have questions or anything to discuss?
I like the model of having something independent that does this, right? Like we should have controllers that do these kind of activities, checking a Docker Hub or checking or checking Artifactory and etc. Right? That model works better than having a monolith. I like it better. I think it's more extensible.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was just wanted to say that we learned from our users that there was a company and they use, I think, Argo CD, and they want to update images on every Docker, on every image in the Docker Hub, but they use JSONnet, so the way they update manifests on a new image is completely custom. That's why they only need some way to monitor Docker registry and look for new images. And then they have a custom script which cannot be embedded into Flux or Argo. So that's why they're mostly interested in just Docker registry scanning. And there's other.
If I may ask, why cannot it be embedded into Flux?
Just because they have very custom manifest generation system. So they use JSONnet application, basically written in the JSONnet. So they know how to update manifest on a new image, but they need some component to know that there was a new image, and they need to get it. Yeah.
We have that actually.
Oh, yours okay.
Yeah, in the .flux.yaml files have a way to patch manifest independently of how manifest generation works. It uses how is it called? A Kubernetes patch, the one used by kubectl patch. It's called merge. How is it called?
Merge.
Strategic merge. Strategic merge patch, which
Okay,
is applied on the difference between with what you have and what is patched to apply on the cluster. And also, you have a way to spec how to generate manifest and then get called whenever an image needs to be updated or a manifest needs to be updated. And you get the information about the image, about the annotations in through environment variables. So you should be able to hook in any existing system. Right, I'm just saying that just in case you were not aware of it.
Yeah, I was not aware. So that means maybe after Michael is done, maybe whatever Michael is doing will be working for these guys as well.
Right. Yes. Or whenever we incorporate .flux.yaml support for .flux.yaml files into Argo. Exactly.
Yeah.
Who from here has used the manifest generation capabilities of Flux in here? Nobody.
Say that again. Say that again.
Manifest generation capabilities of Flux. You place a configuration file and you add a spec on what commands to run in order to generate the manifests. And then you don't need to provide raw manifests. You can add a program which generates them. It can be customized or it can be something else. All right. I think I interrupted you, Alex. You were saying something else.
No. I was trying to say that I also agree that it would be really nice to separate image scanning feature because it's a lot of people ask for that.
All right. Okay. Does anybody else have any concerns or questions or anything to bring up?
So I've been reading the documents, and you talk about the approach, top to bottom and bottom to top. Have you made a decision about this, or just not yet?
Yeah, there was kind of the history behind it. Is first we tried to kind of very careful approach, which was bottom top, and I think idea was to try to find small pieces which we use in both Argo and Flux and move them into GitOps engine. And eventually we decided that it might be just too much of work because we would have to basically recreate the whole subsystems of Argo and Flux from smaller pieces. So we tried to kind of find a bigger piece of functionality in one of the projects and move it, basically do some kind of lift and shift and make it customizable. And this is what we're trying to do right now. And that's a top-bottom approach. And we started from Argo because in Argo we had some kind of generic piece which would work for Flux. So it is covering talking to Kubernetes and maintaining a lightweight cache of a cluster and functionality which can compare resources from cluster and Git and syncing part. And I really think that in Flux we can take a lot of functionality related to Git because Flux can write back to Git, Flux can verify commits, and Argo doesn't do any of that. So I'm hoping maybe as a next step we can do the same from Flux side. Take the Git related logic, formalize it into kind of reusable component, move it into GitOps engine, and use it in both Argo and Flux.
Okay. So are you thinking about running GitOps engine as kind of like the way that Flux runs? It runs inside of a cluster, or like the Argo CD that lives outside of the cluster?
I feel like GitOps engine right now is just a library. It's basically, there is no main.go file. You cannot start it.
Well, that's why I'm asking what is the intention.
Oh, okay. Intention, I think right now we just kind of just to assuming now there is one team Argo, which works on Argo and Flux. We just want to get rid of code duplication. that's why GitOps engine is our way to share code between two projects. Yeah, and I think ultimate goal is to get a perfect GitOps solution which works for everyone, but we are not there yet. We started from backend, like we're just trying to, you know, get less of a code, so we have less work to do, like less bugs. And yeah, and I think you also asked about if Argo can be run inside of a cluster. Is it?
Well, no, but it's a very different model, the one that Flux has, the Argo has, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, the bit I don't like of Argo is that you have to define the cluster definition outside of or in the Git repo, right? Like
actually, Argo already kind of borrowed some ideas from Flux. It's a PR right now, but it will be merged soon. So Flux has a nice way to kind of talk to Flux has API as well, but users, I don't think, maybe some users don't even know it exists, because Flux CTL can kind of port forward on the fly and access that API server, get the data, and then just get rid of that port forwarding. And we like that idea, and we added it into Argo CD CLI. So now it is possible to just install Argo CD into the same cluster. It's been possible even before, but it was not convenient. With that new change, you can install it into the cluster, make it basically not available to anyone, and then use a special flag in the CLI to use port forwarding to access the API. And that's kind of similar to what Flux is doing. But it's not the main. It's, yeah, like you would still get, it's just use case is different. So if you're trying to do that, if you have a need to manage, to have an agent inside of a cluster and manage the whole cluster, maybe you don't need Argo CD because applications doesn't make much sense. UI doesn't make sense. Like there is all of these features which you would not use. And maybe all you need is just an agent which sits inside of a cluster and continuously sync a repo into the cluster. And I think that's what Flux is much better for.
Yeah.
So yeah, we said that before many times. I think we kind of realized there are two different set of experiences people want. Argo is for kind of multi-tenancy to manage applications from one centralized place, and Flux is to manage the whole cluster and kind of, and then in the second mode.
I see it slightly different. I think that both things are needed, but
yeah, I agree. I mean, we also think that both things are needed because we already spoke to people who'd use Flux and Argo CD simultaneously. Like, I mean, like,
yeah, that's something I've been thinking about, to use Argo to basically visualize all the stuff and use Flux to synchronize the applications. But yeah,
I think
that's why because I don't want to make my life more difficult.
Actually, it's great that now like you have Flux experience and you are working with the team which uses Argo, so you can now complain more, please, what you don't like about it.
I complain a lot. Don't encourage me. Yeah, it is an interesting situation because what you usually want is to have the cluster, because from the security point of view, it's much better to have the cluster reaching out. Not the main reason that we had with Argo was that we had to have credentials outside of the cluster, and that was not great. And I know that there's a lot of part of industry that is not very happy about those kind of things, right? But if you are not doing that, if you have the synchronization happening inside of the cluster with Flux, and you have, which was what we were trying to build anyway, then you solve both things, both problems, right? Because you at the end of the day you need both solutions, and both things tackle different problems. right? I think that what happens is people that they don't have many classes to manage, or they have a very reduced scope, they can go with Argo, but when you have big landscape, things get very complex very quickly, right? Because if I have to have a Git repo or branch per cluster, it gets very impractical very fast.
So what I'm interested in, Ivan, is how much different is the terminology between Argo and Flux? Like core concepts, if you look at how they are explained, are we talking the same language, or?
Yeah, more or less. It's not that different. You have concepts that they exist in Flux, like the waves, but yeah, it's, I don't know, like same thing with projects and applications and all this stuff, right? It's these things do not exist in Flux explicitly, right? You don't have the concept of that, but which is good and is bad. I mean, one of the issues we had with that is what is the definition of an application, and man, that, or the project, and you know, that's.
This is the discussion we actually had when we
Everybody
started
will.
the whole thing.
Everybody will have, right? And the issue is that you can go and call something completely different, right? But at the end is a terminology problem, and people will understand different things, and you have to be okay with that. And I spent a lot of time working in document management, and we had this idea of cabinets and folders and trying to replicate what we have in the physical world, but in reality it doesn't really work when you work digital documents instead of physical documents, right? You don't do things because in a digital document can be linked to different places. You can have it in different folders and different cabinets, but the physical document can be only copied, so you have a physical copy in one place only. And there was a whole bunch of issues by calling things that way. With applications, clusters, platforms, we have the same issue. Different people understand different things. We have to be okay with that. But I think it's more about what are you trying to do from the core, like managing my cluster, my applications, and that is a slightly different problem to solve, right? It's who is responsible for doing what, and who has to handle certain situations, and how much you can push things upstream. Like who is responsible for defining an application that goes into my cluster, and how much help do I need from a developer, or how much help do they need from me to be able to put their application in the cluster. And Argo seems easy because have the UI, but it created a lot of much friction than Flux. When we were using Helm and Flux, and yeah, especially when you have the concept of Helm release, the concept of release is really good, and I think that is something that we missed. But it is my biggest critique with Helm has been always that they didn't understand that the release was the core of the whole life cycle. But it's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's about converging, right? We will have to converge, and there's a total. What I totally see is to have Argo CD basically visualizing all the data and delegating the synchronization into agents running the cluster, right? And like Jenkins and company do something similar, right? Like synchronizing it is kind of okay, but you need something else, and this something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the end, it's like which trade-offs are you happy to make, right? It's like, for me, this is very important, and I don't care about, like, you can tell me how I have to define my process to put my stuff in the classes, or maybe it's the other way around, right?
That's interesting. So you think you would be happier if, like, if you still have a centralized place to basically just maintain list of your registry of your applications in different clusters, but the piece which actually perform changes should live inside of a cluster.
So
did I get it right?
The model is, imagine I have a Git repo and I define my cluster, my development configuration there, right? And then I can have one or I can have 5 clusters consuming that information. That's it. And I don't need to do anything. Like when I create a new cluster, the only thing I have to do is to point to that Git repo, and then the cluster gets hydrated and the whole thing running. So I can automate the cluster lifecycle. Right? The issue that I have with Argo is that to do that, I have to go back to GitHub and then create a whole configuration for a cluster and then connect that thing. Which, yeah, it's possible, but it's a little bit more cumbersome than just like, I will point this cluster to this GitHub repo. And then the other thing was the credentials, right? We don't share credentials with anyone. It is way more secure that an agent that lives inside of the cluster connects, and especially when you have multi-tenancy, right? Because then it's.
I think I understood. I feel like that's my feeling. What we're trying to do is instead of trying to change Argo in a way so it works better for this case, we just want to merge backends and get some shared, like maybe one day we'll have Argo UI which can be run on top of Flux, and that UI can be available through like port forwarding. So basically the use case which you're describing, I think more fit for Flux, because Flux is doing that already. It doesn't have a UI, but instead of changing Argo in a way so it became more like Flux, we can just take Argo UI and contribute it to Flux. I think that it's just kind of seems like less amount of work. And at the same time, you might get the use case that you have many teams and Flux takes care of cluster bootstrapping and maintenance of system level applications, and maybe teams which develop services, they can use Argo to manage these services across different clusters. And this is, in this case, kind of, in this world, Flux and Argo coexist. And if we really support, if the same team is developing both, it should be easy to run them both, because maybe we'll have same, similar CLI flags and like same release cycle and so on. That's what I think about it so far. It's just, I feel like it's almost impossible to have 2 user experiences in one product, because it's eventually going to be 2 separate kind of products.
Depends on your approach. If you make it modular, you can basically switch features on and on to compose your own set of functionalities, right?
Yeah.
So that's another solution I think could work.
Yeah, that was my feeling, right? Like the Docker registry sync. You can have all these controllers that provide functionality, and then notify the piece that goes because you have a few pieces here, right? You have the piece that synchronize a cluster with GitHub. You have the piece that goes and synchronize something with GitHub, like now that I have a new Docker image and I'm going to go and apply it in GitHub, and then this piece that detects a change and pulls a change into the cluster, right? And then you have all the UI about how to manage that. But I think that this model works better in many cases, because writing a controller that checks Docker registry, it might be simple. But when you have to talk with all the registries, it gets very complex. right? But in Reactive, you can go and create a new small controller that works for Artifactory, for example. That's something that even JFrog can do very easily, right? And they can control it, and it's working the way that they know that it should work, and that model works better. And then you don't have Artifactory, you don't care about this controller, but when you deploy your solution, then you can decide which components you need, and I don't know. Maybe it's just a crazy idea. But
Okay.
All right. Interesting conversation. Covering use cases of Flux and Argo, which we all care about, and we should be really aware of while building the Argo Flux solution, and well, initially in the shape of the GitOps engine. Any other questions, concerns, topics to discuss? Okay, so thanks everyone for attending. This is gonna be the end of the meeting. We're gonna reconvene and have another one next year, I believe. I don't know when it's scheduled for. Hida, do you know?
Let me check.
it should be the 7th of January.
Yeah.
Given
Actually, it's
that the rule
Janu-
is the first and third Tuesday each month,
I have it on
Tuesday
January 20th.
is
January,
January 7.
is it?
That's the first Tuesday of that month.
Okay. At least, I mean, it's scheduled right now
I
on
know.
December 31. I doubt it, we're going to have it, but maybe
I'm
it should
definitely
be
not gonna be hosting that one.
I'm not going to be there either.
All right, so let's reconvene on January 7th.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be off that day, so somebody else will need to host. Daniel probably. Okay. Thanks everybody for attending. Hope to see you next time. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.